Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be providing a long-term outlook on Dogecoin, and I'm going to be discussing the concept of a sustainable rally here on the Doge BTC weekly chart, as well as on Doge on the USD pair. So if you guys enjoy the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also, by the way, I will leave a link to my Twitter page in the description below. Feel free to go ahead and check that out as well. I am fairly active over there with crypto content. So first, I do want to start off on the Dogecoin-Bitcoin ratio pair because I really want to look at Dogecoin's performance against Bitcoin, look at this longer-term weekly chart, and point out some pretty constructive signs here that are starting to play out. Number one, we do have a pretty long-term bullish flip of support into resistance where we had basically this move right here in February of 2021. If I zoom out here, this was a pretty key level where we had a huge rally off of these lows in December of 2020, right up into that level. That's where Dogecoin found resistance at. And then from that point, it continued to correct over the following few months by about 65%. So we know this was a strong level of resistance back here in January 2021 on that first big leg up. And then when Dogecoin broke out from it right here in April of 2021, it never really got a retest. We saw how it basically just continued higher and then had a very slow grind down over the next year or so, not retesting that level up until June of 2022. And we did see that level flip into support, and that is currently where the lows have formed with almost this double bottom pattern on the weekly with two retests. And ever since then, we have maintained and held above these lows. And in fact, what we've done is we've started to form higher highs and higher lows. So in general, it does look like that we have printed some sort of longer term bottom, just given that we're really starting to see this chart round off. And what I mean by that is we look like we have printed this rounded bottom pattern where we do have sort of that structure of a double bottom and then followed by some higher highs, higher lows, with the most recent weekly chart move looking like we have some sort of longer term higher low. Basically, we have the structure of just coming up, repeating this process, and we could potentially just see that continue where these moves get steeper and steeper. And it's basically the reverse of what we saw on the downside. Again, those lower highs and lower lows. So all of this is looking fairly constructive again on this weekly chart on the Doge BTC ratio. And what this is really illustrating is how Dogecoin is performing against Bitcoin. So if this does continue to trend up, that would just mean that Dogecoin has better performance and better returns than Bitcoin, which I think is something to fairly expect in some sort of stage of the market where we are at right now, just given that we're starting to see those investors go further out that risk curve, more interested in those speculative altcoins, and especially Dogecoin having a historical performance of some pretty crazy pumps against Bitcoin. So if we do continue to print this structure of higher highs and higher lows, I think that could be a very reasonable path forward on a sustainable rally. These pumps where we go up about 100% in a week aren't necessarily sustainable, but when we have this stair-stepping pattern, that becomes a lot more sustainable. And what I mean by that is we had this level of resistance right around 367 Satoshis. You can see that quite clearly on this weekly chart. Resistance, resistance, basically on 5 separate occasions, rejecting off that low. And then we just flip that into support. So basically we have a very slow grind up on the longer term chart. Yeah, we had that big pump at about 100% in 1 week, but we're coming back down over the last few months. We're retesting it, and we're starting to see, again, this longer term rounded bottom when I zoom all the way out here with the retest and the flip into support from the highs and back in January of 2021. So on the Doge USD pair, we're seeing something pretty similar, just sort of a stair-stepping pattern. You could point to this as another longer-term double bottom with the 2 retests. And what's interesting about Dogecoin is that unlike many other altcoins and unlike Bitcoin, Dogecoin was actually able to maintain its lows and its support from back here in the summer of 2022. We never formed a lower low. We never actually broke down from support, which gives us this structure of, again, the higher lows. Buyers coming in to step in at valuations higher than the previous level of support, and you could draw some sort of uptrending line of support. And when I zoom out here again, that is definitely a reversal to what we've seen with this very aggressive bear market trend. And you could obviously make the bullish argument that we have broken back above downward sloping resistance with this diagonal trend line, and that we have started to really shift the momentum back to the upside with a sustainable rally, really not seeing lower lows since that June 2022 move on the summer capitulation. So overall, there's a lot of constructive signs starting to play out, and we have seen again that stair-stepping pattern where basically we've spent a while just flipping levels from previous resistance into support. You can see this level right around 6.7 cents. has been resistance throughout here in Q4 of 2022. And then we just recently flipped that into support back on the lows in beginning of January. So overall, I do think that this is going to be a more sustainable rally, especially if we can have more of a slow grind up like this, as opposed to these very aggressive rallies up 100% in just a few days. Those are definitely not sustainable. So that is not the goal. We don't want to see this type of move because those quickly resolve back to the downside very, very quickly. And in fact, if I go back to the Doge BTC ratio and I zoom out all the way, again, we have seen those pumps before with Dogecoin where it basically just does these massive moves and then it just retraces them the next few months. So that's not necessarily what we want to see. We want to have more of a base and an accumulation range before we have, again, what would ultimately be a new all-time high in a future bull run. So I hope you guys enjoy the content and the analysis. By the way, make sure to check out my Twitter page. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.